All right, so today I'm going to talk about the portfolio item and the things that I put on my resume when I was going into this interview process. And I had some of you guys send in your portfolio projects, your resumes, your websites, and I reviewed these. So what I'm going to do is talk about my resume, review some of your guys's, and I'll talk about the projects that stood out to me. So the reason why this is going to be interesting is because I've been on both sides of this. So I've been the one interviewing candidates, and I've also been the one going to these interviews. So I'm going to be able to give you both sides of this, and this also isn't going to be a normal portfolio review video. There's a lot out there. I'll leave that up to other people to review those. What I want to do is just take the projects that stood out to me. So I had probably over 100 sent in, and I'm going to give you the backstory of how this filtration process works and how these projects stood out to me. So the first thing is my personal portfolio resume or website. So I didn't have a portfolio website. I got my first job just by working at the company, proposing an idea, and I ended up building that. So a lot of you guys know that story. If you don't, I'll link that video up in the video description, and you can also see the product that I built. So I won't show it here. So after about 2 years of working, I had this job experience under my belt, and I also had this project that I worked on. So when I started applying, before I decided to go to YouTube and what I wanted to do with my life, I started applying just to see what was out there. And I went to these interviews, and I started showing my work. And at this point, I didn't have a portfolio website. I really didn't have my resume because I was working for 4 years prior, and then I had my own company. But what I brought to the interview was this story of my project that I worked on for 2 years. So I only had one item on my resume. So right away, I just want to make that really clear. It doesn't matter how many items you have on your resume. Now, if these items are, let's say they're not great, then it might help to have more work under your belt. But if you worked at one job or on one project, this one project is what stood out to these employers. And I went to a lot of interviews, got a lot of offers, and some of these interviews were actually for companies that required a computer science degree. Now, I still applied. I didn't have that degree, but by the time we got to that point in the interview where they asked about it and they noticed that I didn't have it, they were so captivated by the project that I worked on because it had everything you want in a candidate for a lot of these jobs that I was applying for. There was that self-motivation. There was the creativity, the ability to be motivated and create something because I designed it, I built it. They saw the stack that I worked with, all these things that I was able to put together. And right away, that one item on my resume stood out to them, and that was enough. So it wasn't about the amount of items. It was about what the work I actually did was, and obviously connecting with them. So that's the project that I had on my resume. So remember, I didn't have a portfolio website. I just brought that resume. I just left one job after working for years, and then again, my own company. So that was all I brought to the table, and that was enough. Now, going through your guys' project, so we're just going to jump right into that, and I'm going to pull up an Excel sheet, and I'll talk about how I put this together. So right away, again, getting over 100 websites, portfolio items, you're going to see how an interviewer thinks. You got to remember, a lot of people, when they send this in, they expect the interviewer to do their due diligence, to do all the research on them, and then make the best decision. I hate to tell you, that's probably not how it's going to work. In many cases, they're going to get a lot of applications. Now, it's not always going to be the case. In some cases, you may be the only person applying, but right away, I'm creating a filtration system. So any projects that don't jump out to me, they get scrapped right away. I created a rating system, and some of them I didn't even rate. Not that they were horrible, but they had nothing in them. They had nothing in them that jumped out and caught my attention. Now, anytime I got a GitHub repo, if the GitHub repo forced me to download the project or have to look through the code, me as an interviewer that doesn't have the time to look for or look through all these resumes, I don't have time to look through your code. That one's going out the window. Unless something catches my eye, unless I have extra time, I'm not looking into it. So right away, you got to understand you need to catch attention right away. So a GitHub repo, if there were images in that GitHub repo, let's say in the README, you had screenshots of your project, that might work. That's something that I don't have to really look for. That stands out to me. So I filtered these down, and in my Excel sheet, now I created a grade for each project, and I hid the person's emails. I hope I did at least. And this grade doesn't necessarily represent the quality of the portfolio, but this represents how much that project stood out to me or that resume stood out. So if you're one of these people that made it to the list, don't worry if you have a low grade. That just means that it didn't jump out to me in a different way, but it doesn't necessarily represent the quality of your portfolio. So right away, if you notice the 10s and 9s, not all of them, but if I see that you worked on something personal, that you built something personal, that's going to jump out to me right away. And I'll usually grade you a 10 if I see that you built it, even if it wasn't the best project. So if it was a real application, those people most likely got a higher grade. So just want to make that clear. And to anyone else that didn't make it here, it means that I just didn't give it a higher rating. Something didn't jump. Maybe it was a replica. So it doesn't mean that you didn't make the list. So I still thank you for sending that in. I really appreciate that. But we're going to review these for the sake of time. So the first one is Alexander Grattan. So I can't remember all the notes that I took for these. So let's just kind of go through it and see what happens. And I put a few descriptions here. So college planner, good portfolio site, and design skills. So Alexander, right away, I can see that you have some design skills. I like this. This could be a template. It depends on what I'm hiring you for. Now, if I'm hiring you for front-end development, I probably expect you to build it yourself, but I think it's a pretty neat website and it's pretty clean. So I'm not trying to review the website, but what stood out to me here, let's see. This New York Times thing, so you're working with an API. I can see you're pulling some data. And also, I thought there was another project. It looks like you're doing some real work for companies. So right away, if I got this right, I didn't get a chance to interview you, but it looks like you're actually doing some real work. So right away, it shows me that you're putting things together. So this is actually what stood out to me. This was the one that I really like. So this is a college planner. So you write in your, and I believe it's just tapped into an API, but you select the university you want to go to, the amount you can afford, I believe, yearly to pay, or yeah, that's yearly. And then you get the rating on the university you want to go to. So let's say I can pay $30,000 a year. I want to go to the University of Alabama, get your rating. So this is pretty neat. You have really good design skills. This jumped out to me because of the backend or the API. So there was an error with the input. Let's just say in-state. And this is something that I would start asking you about. I'd be really curious on what you used. It looks like you used React, and you're tapping into, yeah, it looks like you're tapping into an API. So it looks like you didn't build out the backend, but I would ask you about that. That would stand out to me. I like that. Pretty clean portfolio. Let's go to the next one. So I don't know how to pronounce that name, so I'm not going to try. Sorry about that. And let's see this one. So the reason why I like this one is I can tell your design skills they're not great. I'm not gonna grade the design skills because I can't see everything, but this looks good. It looks clean. So you might be great. I don't know. But I approve of the design. I can see you know what you're doing. And I'm also gonna assume that most of these are full backend. So if some are WordPress, that would completely change my opinion depending on what I'm hiring you for. But this, I'm assuming if this is Django, this is pretty cool. So it looks like it's a sports tryout website. You can apply for these. I can see that you know basic CRUD functionality. You know how to authenticate a user. There's a lot of Django skills you have. And I also gave you a high rating because I haven't seen this in another tutorial. So I'm assuming you built this out yourself. If you did, that completely changes my perspective. And I also want to know, I guess it doesn't look like you're using this in a real example, but it's still a cool project. I would definitely want to sit down and ask you some questions about this and would ask you back for a second interview. So let's go to Andrea now. So good portfolio, machine learning. So this one stood out to me. Again, it depends on what I'm hiring you for, but the portfolio is clean. And it looks like you're into a lot of AI, data visualization. What jumps out to me right here is that data part, the data science part of things, the machine learning part. Now, if I needed that, it doesn't mean that you're automatically qualified, but it looks pretty cool. It looks like you know what you're doing, and something about it just catches my attention. So this is based on the portfolio alone. So I didn't really look in the projects, and I don't think you're really linking any up, but it's neat to see. So let's go to this next one. So clean website. I can see all your skills here. And what stood out to me here, I think it was a school management platform, social media, e-commerce, WhatsApp clone. So there's a few items that you had here. I'm just going to open up some links, and I'm assuming they're going to take a while because you have them on Heroku, I think, and it looks like they load slower because you're not paying for the service. But let's go into, that looks like a broken link. So you have a social platform. Now it has some broken stuff on it. And I can see that you probably understand basic authentication. So nothing pops out here. This e-commerce platform, nothing that really stands out, but I can see that you know how to build out this kind of functionality, which is cool. When I click add to cart, I can see, oh, so I have to register. So that must have been a different platform. This is kind of neat. I would ask you some questions about it to see maybe if you've built out a real application and what you're capable of. So let's close that out. So that was probably just a portfolio site and just a variety of some work here. So let's jump to Joseph. Okay, so here are the notes for that. So social media, e-commerce, and WhatsApp clone. So the WhatsApp clone, this is kind of cool. So we're not going to jump into the actual project, but an Instagram clone, I see you work with a MERN stack. You have a social media site, which looks kind of neat. I'm not going to go into that. Now that's something that's kind of cool to, something that you should do is create pictures or a video demo for a product. Now, a lot of these, like somebody had an Instagram clone and I had to register and create an account. When I'm looking through 100 projects or more than that, I don't want to have to sit there and try to create all these accounts and give a bunch of emails. Have some pictures for me, prep something like that, make it easy to find. So some of those I did sign up for, other ones, it was late at night when I was looking through these. I'm not going to go through that. So this WhatsApp clone looks pretty cool. I'm going to ask you about that if I interviewed you. And it looks like we have an e-commerce site, good functionality. I like both of those. An Instagram clone. So it doesn't look like you've built anything of your own just yet, but I would definitely want to know about the back end to this Netflix clone. But this is pretty cool. This stands out. The website itself, it's clean. So let's go to the next one, Joseph Abu here. So this one I rated a perfect 10. So the reason why I got this, this wasn't even a portfolio site. This was just an email showing their website. Now, in the email, they mentioned something about how once they learned, they went and tried to build out a real website. Here's kind of the neat thing of how an interviewer thinks right now. So, or at least how I would go through this process. Because I see that this is your own site, I don't even care about your portfolio website. I would like to still maybe see a resume, but they're working on a real platform. I don't even know what it is, but I have a lot of questions. I'm really curious about the database you use, what the stack was, what you use on the front end, because you didn't give me any information about this. You just sent me this link, but it already looks cool, and it looks like you even have a mobile app, I believe, and it looks like you have real users on it. There's a video somewhere on here about this platform, and if I try to read about this, a portal for telecom needs. Now that can mean anything. I'm not sure what that is, but it looks cool. I would definitely want to ask you some questions about this. You have design skills, that's for sure, and everything looks good. So here I see a picture. This is what I'm talking about. Try showing pictures like this right here. So if I can see into it without having to create an account, because right now I don't have the time to sit here and register, but if I can see in here, I'm able to see that you have a dashboard, you have stats. It looks like you're tapping into different APIs, definitely some kind of database here. This is a perfect 10 for me just because of that, and there was no portfolio site and no resume with that. So right away, this is kind of how my experience was when I had that project. They were so obsessed with what I worked on and wanted to know more about it that everything else didn't really matter at that point. It looks like I just broke the link to that. So this is right away, this portfolio site stands out. I don't know if this is or not. I'm sure I've seen this website. It looks like a theme that you've used. But what stands out to me here is the fact that this is clean, so you at least understand some design. And this, if I was hiring somebody for JavaScript, maybe for some front end work, it looks like you know what you're doing. I like the Flappy Birds. It looks like there's a few other projects. So to me, this shows that you enjoy working on side projects, that you're really trying. There's not just one product up here, and it's not just some to-do app. You're really putting things together. So some PHP, it looks like you have here. And I would probably start looking through the GitHub repo. I'd want to know more about you, depending on what I'm hiring for. So that was Arjit, I believe is the name. So I don't want to mess that one up. And let's go to this next one. So this is Kenny. So the funny thing is I don't remember what I'm looking through right now. This is just after I filtered everything down. So while that's loading, let me pull up the next site. And this is going to be for Mehedi, I believe is the name. So Kenny, okay, Design is clean. And I honestly don't, a lot of people have publicly shamed these progress bars. I really don't have too much of an issue with it. I don't think it does anything great, but it tells me where you feel strong. Like a lot of people say, well, what are you grading that 50% against? Now, it might not be an accurate reading, but it tells me that you're strong in Python. You're probably more than comfortable with JavaScript, but you don't really care for HTML and CSS. So that's how I would interpret it. I don't think that's that bad of a thing. Now, the reason why I saved this one, so outside of the website, it looks pretty clean. This music player looks good. So there's an API here for a weather app, some kind of landing page, but this right here, I'm really curious to see if you actually have a database or if you're tapping into an API somewhere. I think that's a really neat project, and I would ask you for a second interview or at least a second phone call just to review that and see what you know, because that has my attention. While that's loading, I guess it's loaded now. So it looks like I can actually play music from here, and I won't play it right now because I don't know what that's going to do to the audio, but it looks like we have a whole library of songs, and that's pretty neat. Definitely want to know more about that. Does it say what you used? Let me see. No, it doesn't say anything. I would love for you to have some kind of description on what's going on here. Okay, music player built on React.js. So I'm assuming you're tapping into some kind of API here. Okay, so I think it's Mehedi. So what was it that I liked about this one? Okay, so the site itself looks clean. So you have your resume embedded. And what I liked about this, so what did I grade this one? So this is a 7. So I guess anything under a 5 or anything under a 6, which I would consider like 5 is like my average, I just removed. But the reason why I graded this one a little lower, but I still liked it, was because I can see that you're really trying. You have an e-commerce site. That's actually from my course, I believe. This is also from my course. This is from another project that I did. And this one I do not recognize. So what I'm recognizing here is that you're trying out a lot of projects. So maybe you didn't find something that you want to actually work on, anything that you didn't find a need for a project, but you're really trying, and you clearly understand most of the basics that I would require for a Django developer. Now, this isn't including the REST framework, but I can see that you're putting work into it and you're putting some projects together. So that's cool. So this is from my project. So let's go to that card. Yeah, so I understand the functionality. I see what you're going for. I like it because you're putting in the work. So that's clean. So good job, Mehedi. So Maxwell. Maxwell is a college student, I believe. Yeah, he sent me an email explaining a little bit more. Why did this one stand out to me? So we have a finance application. It's checking stock prices, BookFox. So it's a book review website. So I would ask questions on where, what your stack was, what you're doing. Let's actually see the languages. If this is something that I need. Oh, and by the way, this is what I'm talking about right here. So when I go to your GitHub repo, I don't want to have to look through all your code. It takes a lot to review code. If I'm looking through a lot, that's going to be a major turnoff. So something like this GIF is really cool. That's even better than a picture. But you have a description. You're telling me what it does, and you're showing me in the README what this application looks like. So I don't even have to look at it. Maxwell, I didn't even notice you had that GIF there. I'm going to push you up to a 9. So that looks really good. This probably should be a 10, but let's see your next one. Okay, perfect. You have a GIF. It's a book application. Let's see. Let's go. Okay, so let's see the stack. So we have Python, SQL, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, VBA, the language not many people know about. I actually know that. So that's kind of interesting. Flask, Django, Bootstrap. And let's go back to projects. Let's see LangLab. That looks pretty cool. See, this is awesome. Like I didn't even notice this in the original process of filtering. I'm sure there might have been some that I filtered out without even noticing their GitHub repos, but Maxwell, you deserve a 10 for that. That's perfect. I love that. Okay, so I think I just jumped backwards here. Let me close these out. So we have Rafi. Let's see if I'm saying that right. So while that's loading, let's check out Stanley's. Okay, so Stanley's loaded quick. What jumped out here? So my work, it's very clean. So the reason why this jumped out is it looks like you're actually doing work for clients. And I would put that in the category of you've built out your own project. So looks like this is somebody that's self-motivated. It looks like if I give Stanley a task, he'd figure it out. Even if he doesn't know the languages, this is the type of person that I want to hire. Somebody that I say, hey, we need this feature, this implemented, even if it's not a framework or language that they understand, they go and do the research. And somebody that's working on their own projects is usually somebody that understands that and does things like that. So rebuilt a company's website from scratch, now averaging 250,000 monthly users. Wow. So you're doing real work. Stanley, what did I grade you? I need to put you out of 10 for that. I would love to ask you more questions about that. This API package scanner. So I actually had to work on that. So for that, that's another bonus. I would love to ask you about that. Really cool. Love it. Good job, Stanley. And we go back to Mohammed. So Mohammed is using my website design. So I can see you followed my tutorial. So you understand the basics of design. You followed a tutorial. What stood out here? So you're following. This is a lot like, I believe it was Kenny that had that. Somebody here I just reviewed it was working on my project. So that's my e-commerce customer management platform. So it looks like you extended my CRM tutorial or course into an e-commerce website. Now, if you did that, what did I grade you at here, Mohammed? Let's go down here. Where is that? Looks like the names got mixed up here. So, oh, it's right here. Rafi. I'm not sure what happened with the name. So if I mix up the names there, sorry about that. So it looks like, okay, the fact that I'm logging in right away, that's, I'd like to be able to see something else, maybe some images, but that's fine because you have it here. Maybe if I go to this article, if I can go to an article, see some more about it. Obviously I know it because I built it, but you have an e-commerce site. If you extended that, again, you get a better grade for that. And you're working on a lot of projects. So I like that. That shows me that you're really trying to learn. You're probably really picking up a lot of information. You look really motivated. So it looks like you're really motivated. I don't know what I'm trying to say there. So while that project is loading, I'll close that out. So we have a clinic. I don't know if that's for a real customer there. So actually it doesn't look like it because you have your name there. So I'm assuming you just built that out as a side project. Okay, so yeah, it looks like if I skipped you, I'm sorry if you're on this list. I went from Maxwell to this one to Stanley. Okay, so this is kind of cool. It doesn't, I don't remember what the portfolio was about, but the fact that this is a JavaScript application that stores information in the console, that's pretty cool to me. So we can save that, and then you can actually add more nodes. So this looks like something that Floor and Pop actually did in his 50 projects, but I'm assuming you did this outside of that video because he just released that. So this is pretty cool. And when I looked in the browser, I was trying to figure out if you had a backend to this. I can see that you're storing information in local storage. So for anyone curious about that, here we go. We have the notes, and that's stored right here. So if I refresh this, the notes are going to stay. Now, one downside is the formatting gets lost. So if I add another item like that, the formatting gets lost. So that's a downside, but I would be curious I'd want to ask you some more questions about that. That's pretty cool. Okay, that's a note-taking app. And then Jules, I believe. I want to make sure. I've pronounced your name before in another video. Sorry if I got that wrong again. So you also followed my portfolio website video. So for those of you curious about that, that is on Traversy Media on his YouTube channel. It was a collaboration that we did. So, and I told people to steal my design. I'm totally okay with that. If you're not looking to be a front-end developer, it's okay to use a theme. And that's why I put it out there publicly. And it's still the website that I use. I don't know if I'll change it. But so Jules, I'm going to give you credit for using my design. I like that. I don't know if you have a backend to this. Yeah, it looks like you built out a backend. So good job. It looks like you've watched my time-lapse video and extended that. So let's see what stood out here. So the chat application, really cool. We have stories. So it looks like a blogging platform. I like the fact that you have a picture in here. You explain the technologies, what you're using here. That's pretty neat. You have authentication. I like that. And I just closed out your website. So let me open that one more time up. Or open that up one more time. And we have a news application. And let's see if you have more here. So Yeah, nothing too special, but I can see that you're working at it, and you're following along. So it's in one of those categories where I can see you're working hard, and I would want to give you a chance. So it definitely stands out. Okay, we have Ikram here. Let's see what this one was. And we'll pull up this full student app. So CodeWithTomi. So CodeWithTomi, the reason why would I give him an 8? I probably should give him, I'm going to give him a 10. So the reason why I like this is, we'll jump to Tommy, then we'll go back to Ikram. So Tommy actually has a YouTube channel. So I'll pull that up just to give him a shout out, but he's filming tutorials, and that can go either way, honestly, in an interview. So for me, I would consider that, let me just try to write this out without hitting my mic. So the reason why that jumps out to me is because I understand it, and I can see Tommy's putting in a lot of work. So he has some videos here. He's just getting started, but it shows me that he's passionate about it. He's working, he's going on beyond, or he's working beyond the basics, and it's also really hard to teach. So Tommy's really working at it, and I would give him a big thumbs up for that. Now, this can also be a downside in an interview. So I did an interview with a company. They loved me. They wanted to hire me, but the fact that I had a YouTube channel was actually a turnoff for them, and that was because they didn't like the commitment. They wanted more commitment than that. So that's really up for you to decide how much you want to go into that, what you want to do there. In my case, they saw that this is something that I wanted to eventually transition into. But in Tommy's case, I don't know if he's trying to become a YouTuber or he's just trying to show some projects. So you can play that card whichever way you like, but sometimes it can be good and bad. So this is also Tommy's website. So fullstudentstools.heroku app. So right away, it looks like Tommy's working on his own project here, and I can see a lot of cool projects right within here. Even though it's not a portfolio site, it looks like it changed cat to car, but I see the idea behind it, and I like what's going on. Then we have a dictionary, a plagiarism checker. I would love to know the backend if you're using an API, if you wrote something yourself there, math solver, and quadratic equation calculator. I don't even know what that is, but yeah, Tommy. If you were applying and I was looking, I would definitely consider you here. So we have, I'm not sure if so it looks like Ikram. Yeah, so that's the right one. So this one I put on here. This is just I don't know if this is designed in WordPress or if it's hand coded. The reason why I like it, if I was looking for a designer or somebody who was doing some front end stuff, my wife's a designer, so that's why I resonate with this one. I can see that I like the icons. I don't know if those are designed by you or not. I would ask you about that, but I might put you on the design team if I were hiring here. So I like this. I see that you have your personal blog here and would have some questions for how this was built. I'm actually curious about that. So that's why I put it there, and I gave it a 6. The reason why I gave it a 6 is because it's not something that popped, but I wanted to notice. So that completely depends on what I'm hiring for. So let's go to Emad here. And I'm going to try to find the name to these last two. It looks like I didn't find it. Hopefully those are on the portfolio. So let's go to projects. So here we just have a bunch of little projects. So probably some JavaScript, CSS here. Doesn't look like any backend stuff. Tic-tac-toe. So you can play a game. I can see you understand the basics of interacting with this website. I see what you're doing. And depending on what I'm looking for, that's when I would change up how I'm considering this one. But this is kind of cool. I liked it. So we have a dictionary and a scientific calculator. Okay, then we have another YouTube channel. So the reason why this stood out to me, this is pretty cool. I'm actually curious. I might reach out to you, Oswald, if you want to share this. This is a project where you can put in a YouTube video, I believe, and what it does is it translates words in a video into text. Now, I definitely want to know about that. That's pretty cool. It looks like you just sent me the YouTube video. That's pretty neat. I would want to know about this. So it looks like it's searching the words or for a certain word. Wow, even cooler. Yeah, that's neat. I want to ask you. I probably will reach out to you actually. So really cool project. Okay, so my camera cut out, so I'm gonna have to refilm this closing statement. So one thing I wanted to leave you guys with, or I guess two things, is the first thing is I was on a live stream with Caleb Curry today, and we were talking about this interview process. We ended up referring to it a lot, and Danny Thompson, who also joined the stream, who's another YouTuber who talks about interviews and getting employment, getting a job. He talked about how when you're in this process, you are a liability and an asset to the company. So you have to sell yourself. You have to prove to the company why they should hire you. So when you start looking at people or looking at this interview process from the company's perspective, you got to understand they're investing a lot of time and money into you, and they're the ones taking a risk, not you in this case, because they're the ones putting the money. If you want to quit the next week, you don't like the job, you can leave, but now they have to restart this interview process and they have to keep going through it until they fill that seat. So give the company a reason for you to stand out. Now, if you don't have a computer science degree, well, then you have to do better work. You have to prove to them that's okay not to have a computer science degree in many cases, but you have to prove to them why you're still a good fit. If you're up against a lot of competitors, you're gonna have to do a lot of stuff here. If you don't have the greatest portfolio, but you have one project, then make sure you highlight that project. And the next thing is really the purpose of why I wanted to make this video was to show you this process in how I filter these projects and these portfolios out. You got to understand, I'm getting a bunch of them. I had this with this video when I was hiring people, when I was interviewing people for the job that I worked at, when I was in charge of doing that. I got a lot of resumes, and this filtration process, you need to do something that stands out, something that pops, grabs my attention. If it's showing projects and images, show them. If it's giving project details, you don't have to give crazy write-ups, but do something that catches the interviewer's attention. You don't have to have everything perfect, but you need to do something that stands out. In many cases, you might not be one of hundreds of candidates. You might be one of five, and that's going to be the case in many situations. But depending on what it is, you need to act like you're fighting with a bunch of people for this same spot. Give them a reason to hire you. So look at it through their perspective, and you might change your thought process. Again, that was the goal behind this, was to give you the thought process behind a candidate and also what catches my eye and what I see. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I might do a few more of these. I'm not sure. Might do them in a live stream. So we'll change things up a little bit. I'm a little bit nervous about that, but we'll see you guys in a live stream or in another video like this. Thanks for watching. Hope it helped.